Alright guys, so this video is going to be the 10 things I love about my STI. You know, from my last video, the 10 things I hate, apparently people thought that I truly hated my STI. They completely missed the point of it, that it was a fun, lighthearted tag video. Most of the people commenting were not my subscribers. They were other people who stumbled across that video, you know, from other recommendations from YouTube. But if I really hated my car that much, I would not own it. I would have sold it years ago. So a lot of those things that I was talking about, I was nitpicking. I know, it's my video, it's my car, and I reserve the right to nitpick if I want. But they really weren't big deals. It's just that there wasn't a whole lot that I didn't like about my car, so I chose to nitpick so that I could make 10 things that I didn't like. This video is going to be about the 10 things that I love about my car and why I love it. So with that being said, I want to tag Project WRX because he asked me to help out his channel a little bit, like a month or two ago, before I was out of school, when I was still really busy. So you know, I'm gonna tag him and he could complete this video if he'd like. I'm gonna post a link, a hyperlink in the description down below, as well as on this video, to check out his channel and subscribe to him. With that being said, I'm gonna start. So the first thing is the World Rally Blue paint. Now, my paint is all jacked up and it's oxidized because it's old. It's 10 years old, it's kind of what you expect. But the color itself is awesome. I think it's one of the best blues ever on any car. When I repaint it, I'm not sure if I'm gonna go World Rally Blue, but I could pretty much guarantee you it will be a blue, and it will be very close to this. I might go a little bit darker, a little bit deeper maybe, but I love the World Rally Blue paint. It's just one of the most brilliant blues, especially when it's fresh. You know, when your car's washed, waxed, clay barred, it just looks awesome, and it is sure to turn heads no matter what. Number two has to be that this car has a decent turn radius. I'm no engineer and I don't know a whole lot about turning radiuses or radii, but I know when a car can turn and when one can't. My first car was a third generation Mitsubishi Eclipse, and that car could not turn to save its own life. Despite having 3 wide open lanes of traffic, I still could not make a U-turn. And I cannot tell you how frustrating it is to, you know, need to turn around and end up having to perform a 3-point turn in the middle of a busy road, or the other alternative would be going off on a rabbit trail down a bunch of different side streets trying to find somewhere wide enough that you could actually turn around. I hated that, not being able to turn around so much in that car. So when I have this car, I love that I could turn. I know there are cars that turn tighter. I don't care that there are cars that can turn tighter. As a daily driver, this car's turn radius is perfect for me. I have no problems turning around. I don't ever get stuck anywhere. So I love that I'm able to turn around. And to me, that's one of the biggest pet peeves I had about my previous car. So the fact that this car turns well is good for me. Number 3 is all-wheel drive. I know a lot of guys love rear-wheel drive because it has a ton of drama and they can kick out the back end and have fun, and that's awesome. And I know a lot of guys love front-wheel drive, especially when you have cars like the Mazda Speed 3 and the Focus RS that are out right now, and that's awesome as well. Me personally, at this point in my life, subject to change, I love all-wheel drive. I love Subaru's symmetrical all-wheel drive. It's very good at distributing power, but I love that. I love that I can have fun and kick out the back end, but when I want to go, it hooks and goes, and I don't have to worry about wheel spin or, you know, traction control. Fun fact, my car has no traction control, and you really don't need it. But I just love the amount of grip and traction that the all-wheel drive provides to this car. It's a ton of fun, especially once you start bumping up the power. Number 4 has to be that this car makes decent power. Now, I know 300 crank horsepower isn't all that much these days, especially when you have, you know, 707 horsepower Hellcats running amok everywhere. But you have to remember, 10 years ago when this car was built, the horsepower wars wasn't even a thing yet. Nobody even foresaw that really happening. You had Mitsubishi and Subaru putting out the Evo and STI, basically, and you had a couple other good horsepower options as far as price goes. But other than that, all the high horsepower cars were expensive if you wanted it to come from the factory. So the fact that this car made that much power when it was built is awesome. And even though it's 10 years later, you could still tune this car and make a ton of horsepower. You know, a lot of guys, I feel personally, they either watch stuff on YouTube or they read on the forums about horsepower numbers, and you really can't judge a car based on a number. Every car is different, every platform is different, so, you know, a 400 horsepower Mustang is going to be completely different than a 400 horsepower Subaru. So you really have to get into the car, drive it, and tweak it as you own it to see what horsepower is actually good for you. But a lot of guys overestimate horsepower. You really don't need all that much, especially in an all-wheel drive platform like this. Number 5 is going to be a little bit subjective, but I'm going to say this car gets good fuel economy, relatively speaking anyway, for the horsepower. At least for me, my car, every Subaru is different, every STI is different, even within the same year. So your mileage may vary. No, that wasn't a good joke. Anyway, Subaru tunes from the factory tend to be on the rich side. I guess they'd rather be safe than sorry. But my car specifically, I think I was getting about 18, 19 city, probably 21 miles per gallon mixed, and I want to say maybe a max of about 25 miles per gallon highway, which is pretty pathetic. Mind you, 10 years ago, that wasn't terrible. By today's standards, that's pretty awful. So after my car was tuned at AV Tuning, I was making 380 at the wheels, and amazingly, my fuel economy actually improved a significant amount. I want to say this was a couple years ago, so I might be off 1 or 2 miles per gallon, but I want to say I was getting about 21 in the city, 23 mixed, and I was actually getting an amazing 30 miles per gallon highway on the highway. Which for a car that made 380 to the wheels was just awesome. I loved it because it was perfect for me, where I could drive hard, I could get on it when I wanted, but on a road trip, I wasn't stopping every third exit to fill up. Number 6 is that my car has rear seats and rear doors. Like I said, my first car was a Mitsubishi Eclipse, 3rd generation, and it didn't have back doors. It had seats, which you really couldn't fit more than a toddler. I also love that I have doors. I really got sick of, you know, having to flip my seats forward every time I had to let somebody in or out of the back, or if I wanted to put something in the back. That gets really old really fast. I know a lot of guys are into coupes, and that's cool. I know SubaruWRXFan is enjoying his coupe phase right now. You know, first with his BRZ, now with his Mustang, and that's awesome. And I fully understand that, and I respect that. I already went through my coupe phase with that car. I got really tired of it. Number 7 is that this car doesn't look outdated. Now, looks are pretty much subjective, and you know, everybody has their own tastes and their own ideas and opinions, and that's cool. Me personally, I don't feel that my car is all that outdated, so I'm gonna step aside. I think Subaru did an awesome job with the Hawkeyes starting in 06. With styling them that they're very aggressive, but they don't really look too trendy. One of the biggest problems that car manufacturers have, in my opinion, is that they see a trend starting and then they hop on board, they hop on the bandwagon, and then you have a ton of cars from a certain era that all look the same and they all look very outdated. A great example of this is with the pop-up headlights. You know, in the 80s and 90s, pop-ups were super cool and hip and trendy, and everybody was doing it. And now you see a car from the 90s and you know instantly it's from the 90s. There are some cars that still look good with it, in my opinion, some Corvettes. The NSX looks amazing with pop-ups. I really don't care. It looks good, it looks sleek. It's not really about, you know, looks on what looks good or what doesn't. My point is about, you know, being able to look at a car and instantly know the time period that that car was made. I love all Subarus, I love all cars. Like I said, everything is subjective, and it really depends on your own taste. But I just love that my car doesn't really stand out as being built in a specific year. Number 8 has to be that there is a huge aftermarket of parts for this car. I know that probably sounds dumb because today there's plenty of cars out and there's plenty of parts for all those cars. But as I said before, the first car that I had was a 3rd generation Eclipse, and that car had absolutely zero aftermarket support for it. Honestly, you could probably get an intake, an exhaust, brake rotors, and I think there was literally 1 or 2 companies that made superchargers for it, which did pretty much nothing. So you could spend a ton of money on parts and you really wouldn't gain anything out of it, and that was it. You were stuck. There really wasn't anything else available. With the STI, there are thousands, in fact tens of thousands of parts from hundreds and probably thousands of vendors and manufacturers, you know, that allow you to modify your car, tune your car, build your car however you want. It allows the end user, me or you, to do whatever you want with your car and really be an individual and be different from everybody else. Number 9 is the 6-speed transmission. Now in the Hawkeyes, if you have a WRX, you're gonna have a 5-speed. If you have the STI, you're gonna get a 6-speed. One problem with the 5-speed transmission in Subaru is once you start building up the power, especially once you go past like 350 wheel horsepower or so, they like to blow up. Now, if you have a WRX and you're worried about this issue, More Performance does make a product called blast plates. They're basically 2 plates that sandwich each side of the transmission, bolted together and add a whole lot of rigidity to it and strength. So you could run much higher horsepower. So if you do have a 5-speed WRX, you should check that out. In 2007, Subaru decided to take their 6-speed and stretch out the gears a little bit more, so that you don't have to shift as much when you're daily driving. Some guys love that. I don't, personally. Now I can actually tell the difference between my car and my mom's 2015 WRX, which has the 6-speed. I can tell the difference in the gears. My car is much more drivable for me. I know some people might not agree with that, but for me, I don't mind shifting. I don't mind downshifting. I just prefer to have torque, where in my mom's car, sometimes I don't have the torque when I need it, and then I have to downshift, and then it seems a little bit higher. The RPMs are a little bit higher than they need to be or should be. So I actually prefer short gears. I don't care. But I love it. It fits me very well, fits my personality very well. So I love that it has a 6-speed transmission, and more importantly, that my gears are nice and short. Last but not least, number 10, I'm gonna say safety. I know that's kind of dorky to say probably, and some people may not agree. But for me, safety is paramount to all else, especially on a daily driver, because you have no control over what other people do. You don't control if somebody cuts you off. You don't control if, you know, there's just out of nowhere a bad road condition. Maybe you're driving and you hit a patch of ice or oil or whatever, and you lose control. So especially on the road, there are a ton of factors that could change in an instant and cause you to lose control and crash, or send somebody else crashing into you. So for me, safety is above all else, above all performance. I really don't understand why some guys just take safety and throw it into trash in the name of performance, especially guys who like add a front mount and they say, oh, crash beam, I don't need that because race car. Your crash beam is there for a very good reason. It's to keep you safe, and it's to minimize damage to your car when you do crash. Also, good point to make a note of, the crash beam actually adds a lot of rigidity to the chassis. So when you take that off and, you know, don't replace it, you're actually killing your suspension geometry. So it's there for a reason. It's there for safety, and it's there for structural rigidity. So for me personally, I will never put performance above safety, even if it makes my car slower, even if it makes it not handle as well or whatever. To me, that's not something I'm willing to sacrifice, especially with my car being a daily driver, and you know, there might be somebody else riding with me. It's not just my safety, but it's my passengers. So, you know, your mom, your wife, your kids, girlfriend, friends. I couldn't live with myself if, you know, I was in an accident, either my fault or somebody else's fault, or, you know, just an act of God, and, you know, I was with a friend or a family member who ended up becoming paralyzed, or, you know, suffering traumatic brain injury, or being decapitated or disfigured somehow because I disabled some safety device that was meant to keep myself safe and keep them safe. So it's for the safety of my passengers as much as my own. as to why I don't remove anything. But that being said, the STI and Impreza in general is a very safe car to begin with. It's one of the safest that you could buy, especially 10 years ago. And it's still very safe today. So those are my 10 reasons that I love my STI. As I said, if I didn't like my STI and if I really hated it, I would have sold it a long time ago. I would be driving something else right now. But the fact is, I love it. I chose to be nitpicky in that last video because it's my car, it's my channel, and I'm allowed to be. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. Subscribe if you like my channel, and I'll catch you guys next time.
So let me catch you. So let me catch you slipping by.
Weirdest look I have ever gotten, ever.